Today, we do our first post-combine mock draft using landing spots from a mock draft we found from Tankathon. We are excited to discuss how these projected post-combine landing spots impact our Dynasty fantasy football prospects. Stick around for all that and more. And welcome into the Data Construction Podcast. Like we buried the lead in our intro, doing a mock draft with landing spots from Tankathon. That is linked in the description below. We are excited to kind of hop right into all of this. Before that, David, any updates on the new dog?
Cute little guy. Yeah, definitely happy to have a dog's love back in my life. I think friend of the show, talk about him a lot. Awesome Dumpling is apparently afraid of him. No, I'm just kidding. He's like the size of my foot.
Those are the scariest ones.
Didn't expect to have a small dog, but when you get an opportunity, it's hard to pass. And it's working well. I love the little guy. He loves me. So
glad to hear it. If you have not hit that like or subscribe button yet, people have been voting for us to be giving away roster reviews when we hit 500 subscribers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And when we hit 500, we are going to be giving away a few roster reviews that we will do for you. Can do them live with you. Can do a recorded one on the channel, your preference. So hit that subscribe so that you are ready when we hit 500 and are giving those away. That being said, let's go ahead and hop right into round one of our 2025 mock draft, again from Tankathon. Link to the mock in the description. The 101, we see Cam Ward go to Tennessee. 103, Shador Sanders to the Giants. 104, Travis Hunter to New England, who, by the way, apparently has him as the number one cornerback and number one wide receiver on their draft board. 106, Ashton Genty to the Raiders. 108, McMillan to Carolina. 113, Tyler Warren to Miami. 114, Colston Loveland to Indianapolis. The 120, Omarion Hampton to Denver. And at the 25th pick of the first round, the last skilled player taken, Matthew Golden.
Yeah, we also have 9 players in the second round in Tankathon's mock, and we've got 34th pick in the second round. We've got Emeka Egbuka to the Giants. The 35th pick, Luther Burden to the Titans. We got Jackson Dart to the Raiders. Caleb Johnson to the Bears. Travion Henderson to the Dallas Cowboys. Mason Taylor to the Broncos. That's 2 position players, skill position players for the Broncos. We got Jaden Higgins to the Seattle Seahawks at the 52nd pick. Quinshon Judkins, the 61st pick to the the Washington Commanders. And the 62nd pick to Buffalo Bills. The last one we got here is Trey Harris.
Alec Manor, pick 67 to Cleveland. Jack Besh, pick 68 to Las Vegas Raiders. Elijah Arroyo, pick 71, New Orleans. Harold Fannin, 73 to the Jets. Jalen Royals, 81 to Cincinnati. Cam Scadaboo, 83 to Pittsburgh. Terrence Ferguson, 84 to Tampa Bay. Jalen Noel, 86 to the Chargers. Xavier Restrepo, 88 to the Jags. Gunnar Helm, 90 to the Rams. Jalen Milrow, 93 to the Saints. Dylan Sampson, 95 to the Chiefs. Ollie Gordon, 97 to Minnesota. And last, Savion Williams, 101 to Detroit.
Some interesting spots there for sure. Before we hop into the mock, just want to go through round by round and all give the most interesting pick you personally noticed. Going to start with you and round one, JP. Something that really stuck out to you from round one. I'm sure we'll dive in more to some of this later on as well.
Omarion Hampton to the Denver Broncos. We talked all offseason about how good Sean Payton is for running backs for fantasy football, how historically just the running back room in total has been like a top 5 to 6 fantasy backfield. And if Hampton goes there, I think that's a really, really great spot for him, and I would love that.
David, what's your most interesting note from this round?
Yeah, I'm not going to pick someone that went this round, actually. I think Egbuka and Burden both falling to the second was the most surprising for me. Would not be happy if only 2 wide receivers go in the first, but pick 34, 35, they're kind of fringe first rounders. Just know it's your option. Burden definitely would have a lot of targets in Tennessee. I think Egbuka and Neighbors could work well together. Just need Shador to assimilate to the NFL quickly to get them fantasy relevant.
For me, the most interesting thing I see here is Tyler Warren to Miami. And when we're doing our mocks, we'll mention this before we actually start the mock, 1.75 tight end premium is typically our mock format. And what Jonnu Smith did there, we think Jonnu Smith's all right? He's not bad. And if Warren does not go to Miami, I'm going to be pretty excited for my Smith shares again next year. If Warren kind of gets the usage that we saw Smith have end of season there, even close to that with the ability we think he has. I am excited for that. Moving on to round 2 here. JP, anything that really stuck out for you before we hop in?
I would go with Travion to the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's the spot that people really want to see a running back go to, is because of the long running history we've seen with guys like DeMarco Murray and Ezekiel Elliott. It's just been a really good offense for running backs for quite a while, no matter who's been the coach there. But I would love that. Personally, it's kind of like he'd be filling in that Tony Pollard role of 2023, and I think he'd be really good there.
David, your guy here?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to talk about the running backs in general. With how many there are, I'm a little worried they're going to fall in this draft a bit. Here we have the top 5 all going in the first 2 rounds, so pretty happy with that. I think we would all be happy if those 5 go in the first 2 rounds.
I was going to pick whichever running back you didn't pick to mention as the guy that I found interesting. I like both those spots. Washington for Judkins, Chicago for Johnson, so happy with both of those. And JP, anything that sticks out in the 3rd round for you, last but not least?
I'm going to go with another running back, but Dylan Sampson to the Chiefs there. We've been trying to squeeze in a breakout running back for the Chiefs for a while because of what Andy Reid has done for a long time with running backs. Even when it was Kareem Hunt, when he stepped in, he was immediately fantasy relevant. We tried to kind of fit in CEH as a fantasy community. It didn't really work. He wasn't really that great. Isaiah Pacheco was a a day 3 pick. I think it was around 6 or 7. But I think Dylan Sampson's actually really good, and he's really explosive. I think Andy Reid would really, really try to get him a lot of touches. He loves getting guys with speed. The ball, just look at the receivers he's been drafting lately. Marquise Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy just lately, and Deshaun Jackson of late. But yeah, I really like that, and I'd be really intrigued with him, and he's somebody I got my eye on for this mock.
Don't want David to steal my guy, so I'm going to cut right in and say I loved the Scatabo to the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of RBs we're talking about. We like the landing spot. Might not be the case in the real NFL draft, but we got our fingers crossed. And Scatabo, people talk might be 4th round draft capital. Very interested to see him go in the 3rd. Like the Pittsburgh landing spot. Somebody who likes to run the football. Arthur Smith's got a plan. David, who did you notice from the 3rd round here?
Yeah, I was actually between Scatabo and the guy I'll talk about, so thanks for making this easy. I'm going to go Jalen Milroe to New Orleans at pick 93. That's a 3rd round pick, so he may never get his shot, but their quarterback room is not great. They need some upside. If he gets a job, even for a few weeks, he's going to be fantasy relevant. If he gets a job indefinitely, he's going to be very exciting for fantasy.
Kellen Moore just had Jalen Hurts, and I've seen Milroe kind of comped similarly to Hurts as a prospect. Not one for one. Milroe's a little bit faster, not quite as accomplished as a passer, but maybe Kellen Moore can make that work after a year of sitting behind Derek Carr. Yeah, it is pretty interesting.
All right, well, an exciting draft to draft based on. We'll pull this graphic back up for our YouTube audience as we deliberate throughout when we feel like there's teardrops and want to reference it for our thought process. But David, can you go ahead and pull up our sleeper draft board and tell us who is drafting first and what our stock format is?
Yeah, so it'll be 12 teams, start 11, 1.75 tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdown, nothing else fancy. And we will be going JP, Justin, and then me. And we'll just keep repeating that order. So JP, go ahead.
Yeah, at the 101, it's one of the easiest picks in the draft. It's Ashton Genty, especially when we see him going 6th overall in this mock draft to the Raiders. It would be Pete Carroll's running back, like Marshawn Lynch. I feel like he's just going to run Ashton Genty right into the ground, just give him 300 plus carries. I think that's very, very possible. And now that they got Geno Smith there and Brock Bowers, it is a pretty interesting offense. They already had a decent offensive line. Maybe they'll add more to it, but love Genty to the Raiders.
I was thinking he was going to fall. Just kidding. Of course, Genty is the pick there. Would have loved to see him slide a little bit more, go to a little bit better offense, but Geno Smith there does shed a little more hope on the offense nonetheless. So sitting here, I just don't want to take Cam Ward personally at the 102. Just a personal preference. I don't love the Tennessee landing spot. Travis Hunter going to New England, it's interesting, right? If we had a caveat that we knew he was playing wide receiver there with this draft, I'd be very interested in taking him here. However, like we mentioned at the beginning, like I did my research, looked at what scouts are saying, look at what New England's saying. They're saying they like him as cornerback, number 1 cornerback in the draft, as well as their wide receiver 1 in the draft. Based off of that information and the risk that goes with it, even with the great draft capital, I am going to go Tat McMillan here. Absolute stud wide receiver. Bryce Young needs a 1. Look at what we were able to see for the 3 weeks that Deontay Johnson wasn't crazy Deontay Johnson do last year, for the several weeks that we saw a healthy old man Adam Thielen win me multiple championships last year. If Adam Thielen could be a wide receiver one down the stretch 2 years in a row with this guy winning people championship. Imagine what a young, athletic, tall, fast, like yak guy as well, because this guy is a great yak threat as well, can do. I love him with top 10 draft capital.
Yeah, this makes it real easy for me. Well, I'm not going to say real easy because Hampton deserves to be talked about and considered. But it's super flex. The guy went first in the draft. I feel pretty good about him as a prospect. I know I don't love this quarterback class, but I do think Cam Ward is a good prospect. Doesn't offer much rushing, so I guess the upside is a little bit capped, but it's super flex. He's going to have an opportunity to start at least this season, probably several seasons. I guess if he's terrible, maybe only one, but I'll take the position scarcity. I'll take the first pick in the draft. Pretty happy with Cam Ward here.
I do really like Cam Ward, and I think he could be successful there with Brian Callahan. I think they're probably going to try to add more to that wide receiver room later in the draft. I don't know that they did in this mock draft necessarily, but I think they got to add something more because they just lost Nick Westbrook-Akine also. Not that he's a huge piece, but he was at least something there behind Calvin Ridley. But yeah, I think Cam Ward has a good chance to be successful. And he's a guy who likes to throw the ball deep, and that's good for fantasy as well. And if this is how it falls for me, it's an easy decision no matter what. I actually think this is a tiered break no matter what happens, unless there's a big surprise in the draft. But I'm going to go Amarian Hampton. I mentioned it earlier about the Denver Broncos. We've seen guys like Mark Ingram, Sean Payton in the past be really, really successful. I think Hampton's more explosive than Ingram, but has a similar skill set where he can be a hammer in between the tackles. He can catch the ball as well. I think this is just a dream spot. Bo Nix, I mean, he was really good this year, and the whole thing was he likes to check it down a lot. Well, that's good for running backs. Sean Payton, he's also typically ran an offense that checks the ball down quite a bit too. And it's not like they have a trio of great wide receivers. They don't really have a great wide receiver room overall. So I think they can be run heavy and get him involved in the receiving game.
Yeah, I didn't mean to disrespect Hampton by not mentioning him at the 102. Definitely could be in consideration there. That's a beautiful landing spot. At the 105, I'm processing between two running back landing spots that I really like in the second round. Travion to the Cowboys, Caleb Johnson to Chicago and their revamped offensive line. And I am starting to think Tyler Warren at the 105 here. I'm honest, 1.75 tight end premium. The prospect we think he is, the landing spot, a smart coach. I'm pretty tempted. To take him, but the explosiveness we saw from Henderson throughout this season, the draft capital, the landing spot that he got, Javonte Williams does not scare me there.
No.
If they re-sign Rico Dowdle, whatever they have, nothing scares me there. It's Henderson getting 75% of the work. It's him getting as much of the work as they think is optimal to keep him healthy, basically, if he's the guy there. So that is who I have to take here. Although, can I trade you for the 106, David? Will you trade it to me?
Like just straight up, we could do that. Yeah. No, I think that was the pick there too. I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention the guy that I'm going to take. He's the other person I was considering with Henderson. I do agree Warren starts to creep into the conversation. I think both Judkins and Caleb Johnson deserve to be talked about. I think all of the receivers also deserve to be talked about. But without Igbuka or Burden going in the first, I don't really I like Golden as a prospect. I like the landing spot. I just don't have it in me to draft him above those two. So I'm going to go ahead and take the other quarterback that went in the first. I'm taking Shedeur Sanders, 103 to the Giants. Not only does he have Neighbors, but in this mock, so they've got Igbuka and Neighbors now. I think he's going to be set up for success in that situation if that's the case. Obviously very risky just in general. He's kind of seeming to slide as a prospect. The Giants aren't the best landing spot, but I do think, like I said, with Neighbors and Igbuka, that could be a lot of fun. I think he's pretty pro-ready. He's very accurate, so I'm going to go ahead and take the other quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, being the third overall pick lends you a lot of opportunity, not just for 1 year, but down the road, even if it doesn't work out. Another team would even give him a shot, so I think that he's going to hold value, even if he isn't super successful anyways. But, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Justin, about Travis Hunter. He kind of starts to come in my mind, but still, I think the risk is just too high for him playing corner, or even if it's third, 33% snaps for wide receiver, whatever it might be. So not quite going there yet. Those receivers going in the second round, it does kind of make their value a little bit less there. Matthew Golden, I do like the player, but if you look at his analytical profile with yards per route run and everything, it's not great either. So I think the pick for me in 1.75 tight end premium is going to be Tyler Warren. I think the offense, it was one of the highest scoring offenses when you look back in 2023. 2022, they were really good as well. It's just this last year, things just really crumbled. it was really unfortunate because when you're going into the season, we're like, oh, two running backs can be successful there because the offense is so good. Waddle and Tyreek, like all these guys were being drafted really, really high in underdog redraft leagues. I think the offense could bounce back if Tua's healthy. Like Tyreek, he's getting old, but I think he's still going to be good this year. And I think it's still an opportunity for Tyler Warren to be really, really involved, like you said, Justin. Like Jonnu Smith, he was peppered with targets. And I think Tyler Warren, he's going to stay on the field all the time, especially because I think they need the help, the physicality in the run game. So I think he's probably the safest and best pick here.
Yeah, he would have been my pick if I did not go Henderson at the 105. I am ecstatic at the 108 to be able to get Caleb Johnson. First of all, I'm 50% sure based on the fact that they have the same last name, he's related to the coach, Ben Johnson. That's got to be true, right, guys? It's a rare name, right? We're going to have some nepotism in here, getting extra carries, extra targets, wants to get the son involved, all that type of stuff. But I mean, come on, you look at what we saw. Raise your hand if you're worried about DeAndre Swift in 2025 stealing work from a solid running back prospect.
I thought you were just going to say raise your hand if you're worried about DeAndre Swift, and I was going to put my hand in.
I'm worried about the teams I have him on, sure. Yeah, but he's not a threat, right? He's a guy that'll get 30% of the work there, but he's not going to get the meaningful work, right? He's going to get the keep the other guy healthy work, and in close games might not even really be getting meaningful work even, or any work if it's like no problems, no concerns. And this is a coach who we just saw loves to get running backs involved in a creative way. I think he's going to come and want to establish a lot of the same. We're going to also see them use the wide receivers that they have there, but that's only going to open up running lanes, right? I'm ecstatic about this pick. And if we get this type of landing spots in real drafts, guys, I think I'm going to lose my mind. This is fun.
Yeah, this is a real tough spot, I think, right here. We've got 2 first-round picks left with Loveland and Golden. Got the 2 receivers at the top of the second, and Quinshon Judkins. I think they're all in consideration here. They're all fine picks here. Honestly, if you ask me tomorrow, I might go a different way if I'm in the same spot, but I think I'm going to go Judkins. Washington's got a really good offense. Obviously, they're growing, keep improving. He probably won't have control of the backfield immediately, but I think he will take the lion's share of the work, especially towards the end of the season. I think he'll be someone you're happy to start every single week, and certainly going forward. I just don't see Brian Robinson threatening his work too much. Obviously, he'll get some touches, but in the NFL these days, it's very rarely, one guy getting all the work. So very happy with Judkins here with second-round draft capital and a high-powered offense.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think that he could be a guy who's 40 to 50% of snaps at the beginning of the season and just slowly work his way to 60, 70% of snaps to where he's going to be a must start. I mean, he's a 21-year-old guy. The offense was very, very high scoring as well. I think it's a good spot as well. There's nothing wrong with that at all, and it's second-round draft capital, so that checks the box there. Now, I am going to be looking at the wide receivers now that our top 5 running backs are off the board. And funny enough, Luther Burden is going to the Titans, who just got a rookie quarterback in this draft, and Ibuka, same thing with Shedeur Sanders. So either way, they're going to have a rookie quarterback. I like Cam Ward better, and I think Neighbors is miles better than Calvin Ridley, especially at this stage. So that makes me think I'm going to go with Luther Burden here. I really like him as a prospect. We saw what he did at the Combine. He checked a lot of boxes there. Had a down year this year, but the offense was just really bad in Missouri. His market share numbers are still really good. And tippy top of the second round. Yeah, it's not the first round, but it's just about. I'm not worried about that at all.
Because of you bringing up that point, JP, of both of these guys having a rookie QB throwing to them, we have not seen a lot of rookie QBs really support incredibly fantasy relevant guys. It's happened more in recent years, but again, those guys who've done it have typically been outliers that have been doing, right? I think that this is actually a point because of what you brought up that I'm not going to take Loveland to the Colts. I don't like him as much as I like Warren, and I don't love the Colts as a landing spot. We talked about that last episode. The Colts landing spot wouldn't scare me as much about Warren, but it scares me a little bit for Loveland here because I don't know for sure that he is head, shoulders, knees, and toes above the other wide receivers there to really establish himself. I don't know what's happening with Travis Hunter. I don't know what's going to happen if he goes to New England with any certainty, but the fact that New England is abysmal at the wide receiver position,
bad.
They have what, the ghost of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker there. They signed No Shoes Mac Hollins.
They have Christian Gonzalez at corner, who's really good, and they just signed Carlton Davis to $22 million a year. It's another really good cornerback, so it's not like they need him to be full-time cornerback necessarily as much as they would at wide receiver.
What you're saying there, like a nickel corner, right, coming in when they need 3 corners, corners, playing 40 to 60% of the snaps on defense, not being in on heavy personnel, run plays, etc., right? And playing more at wide receiver is very possible. Given the 2 second-round landing spots to the other wide receivers, the people throwing to them, I would consider Golden here, but I just like the upside of Hunter here in that landing spot. And yeah, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him earlier than I thought I would.
Yeah, that's earlier than I thought too. A little disappointed you didn't make my decision easier here. The upside is great. Obviously, if Hunter is a receiver, especially in New England, Drake May, nobody else really for target competition. I think if we knew that was the case and he was going to be, full-time receiver and moonlight as a corner, he might go all the way up to 102. It's definitely a big swing. If we assume you're the team that lost in the championship, you probably got a good squad. Maybe you can afford a miss. So I don't mind that here, but that puts me in a tough spot. I was already between 3 players, and I was hoping you were going to take one of them. I like Ibuka more than Golden as a prospect and as a player, but he's got neighbors there and a rookie quarterback, so kind of hard to envision a high-end season from him this year. I think he'll probably be flex-worthy all season, but Loveland to Indianapolis, I don't love that spot. It is a 175 tight end premium, though. I'm not quite as in love with their receiving core. I know they've got solid players all around, but I think if Loveland is who we thought he could be, then I think he'll prove to be the alpha in the receiving game there. Whether it's A-Rich or Daniel Jones, who they just signed, I think he'll be a nice security blanket for them. In a 175 tight end premium, you'll love all the catches you can get. I'll go ahead and take him here at the 112. Not exactly what I expected to do, to be honest with you, but here we are on the clock. You make decisions you don't always expect.
Yeah, I know Daniel Jeremiah really likes Loveland, and he said that he believes that some teams like Loveland over Warren, and that they're just two very different type of tight ends. Like he says that Warren's more like Gronk and Loveland's more like Kelsey, because those two guys were just very different in the way that they played and won. So I think Loveland, I think he's a good player. There are some things that worry me about him, but I know a lot of people really, really like him in the scouting community. So, and that's 1.75 tight end premium. I mean, he's automatically a top 10 dynasty tight end, probably even higher than that. So can't blame the process there. And I'm down to the 2 receivers in Golden and Ibuka. Here I am going to swing for Matthew Golden. I just think that CJ Stroud, we know that he is good. We don't know that Shedeur Sanders is going to be good. We know Nico is good as well as Neighbors, so they both have an alpha wide receiver there. But I'm going to go with the proven quarterback. I think Matthew Golden also has more upside as well, and he also went earlier than Ibuka in this mock draft, being a first rounder as opposed to being an early second rounder, so that's going to make my decision there.
I cannot blame you for that. Would have been the pick for me as well. Given what we have on the draft board, I have to pick between a early second round pick in Ibuka and a second round pick in Jackson Dart is kind of what I'm considering. From what I know, what I've read on hit rates on quarterbacks, it's kind of a no-brainer probably to go the wide receiver route. I don't mind the Las Vegas landing spot. I don't think Geno Smith's the answer there, but at the end of the day, I think I gotta go the second round wide receiver in Ibuka. Even if it makes me a little sad to pick a Buckeye. What can you do? I don't love the landing spot. I don't love the fact that it's a rookie quarterback throwing to him. But I do think he's a good talent. And I think even if it's not year 1, year 2, 3, 4, honestly, I'll be ecstatic that I got him here.
A couple years down the line, this will look like a steal for you. Definitely where I would have gone if he was still there. Honestly, could have taken him a little bit earlier, but I think, like we've talked about with that landing spot, just not terrific. So I don't love this pick here. I think I'm going to go with the other guy you were talking about. That's Jackson Dart. He's going to be able to sit behind Geno for at least a year. I think that's something most people wanted for Dart. So that gives him a chance to grow and learn an NFL offense. The tools are there. He's big. He's not the best as far as rushing goes, but he's also not bad. So I'll give you a little bit on that. If he's the starter in a couple of years, I think this is a good pick. Definitely risky though, because it's gonna be at least a year before he's a possible starter, unless Geno gets hurt, which we hope doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think Jackson Dart, it's probably best for him to sit at least a year, just based on the fact that there's gonna be a lot of adjusting for him being in a pretty Mickey Mouse offense there at Ole Miss. So I think that's gonna be a really good learning experience for him sitting behind Geno Smith. And with that pick, and also my golden pick, that takes every first round pick off the board, as well as the top 5 skill position guys in the second round. So this is where I think it gets a little bit murky. Trey Harris is definitely in consideration here. I really like him, but I also really like Cam Scatterbo. I like that Steelers landing spot a lot. We've seen in the past that they have been very, very willing to run a workhorse running back when they believe in a guy. So if Scatterbo can prove that he is that guy, I think Mike Tomlin We'll love to keep him on the field on passing downs, running downs, everything. So I think he could be a really, really high upside running back based on the fact that he proved to be a 20-plus touchdown guy in college. He's also one of the best receivers in this draft from the running back position.
Yeah, I was deciding between him and another running back in the third round. We like the running backs in this draft class. Isn't that surprising?
Surprise, surprise.
So I love that. I love that landing spot for Scatabo. There's another landing spot I love, and that is Dylan Sampson, speed back in the Chiefs offense. A guy that I think has the ability to get 60% of the touches in this offense and score 24 fantasy points a game. You know, like, am I predicting that as like, if I thought that was the obvious outcome, I'd be taking him above this spot, right? You know, I think that's in the range of outcomes. I think a more median range of outcomes of scoring, 15 to 18 PPR points a game, just depending on if he hits that week for a touchdown, maybe on the higher end there, is more likely. But I love the landing spot. The fact that he's in the third round here and we've been scarred by the Chiefs, I think would even still keep him around this range as opposed to kind of crawling up. We've wisened up a little bit to third round running backs. There's a reason they're going in the third, right? We're not taking Trey Sermon at the back of the first anymore, right? We're still letting him sit a little bit here, and at this price point, I think the risk reward is well worth it.
Yeah, that would have been my pick. Either of those guys, honestly, if they were there. Leaves us with one running back going in the first 3 rounds remaining. Not quite ready to take Ollie Gordon, who went to Minnesota. They did re-sign Aaron Jones. Puts me in a little bit of an interesting spot, kind of between Trey Harris, who went to Buffalo, Mason Taylor, who went to Denver. I think with the 175 tight end premium, I'm going to go with Mason Taylor. I think Denver really wants a tight end, which tells me they've got a plan for how to use him. I like Mason Taylor as a prospect. I think he's good enough to be on the field pretty much all the time. So if they don't bring anyone in free agency, I know they had Evan Ingram visit. If they don't bring anyone in and this is what they do, I think Taylor has a good shot to produce in year 1 and certainly going forward after that.
Man, the Broncos are just a good landing spot for really any skill position. They really, really need reinforcements, and I think that they will address it in draft like this. Tight end to the Broncos is definitely a spot that I'm really hoping to see in the first 2 rounds of the draft, so I can't blame you there. At this point, I was considering Trey Harris before. I got to take him here. Jaden Higgins, he is sort of in consideration as well. He went earlier than Trey Harris in this Tankathon mock draft. Trey Harris, he's the yards per route run king of this draft class, and historically, that's a pretty good bet. I mean, he is a 5th-year guy. Some scouts don't like him as much, but there's a lot of upside if he can establish himself as the go-to guy for Josh Allen. Could be a big touchdown guy. We see Josh Allen every single year. Not only is he rushing touchdowns, but he still is throwing a lot of touchdowns as well through the air. And I really feel like they were missing that ace in the playoffs. Like, they were a really good team. They could run the ball. They could use Josh Allen. But when they needed a go-to guy on third down, it seemed like they were really lacking that. That was one of their only weaknesses I saw in offense this year. And I think Trey Harris could assume that role.
That is a interesting pick there. Do love the landing spot. I still don't think Buffalo has their answer at wide receiver on the roster right now. Had hope for Amari Cooper. We were never that big on Keen Coleman. He flashed, but I think he flashed complimentary, not NFL alpha. Trey Harris has shown some of that, especially the advanced metrics when we talk about him more throughout the offseason, that are incredible. So I like the pick. I feel like this is no man's land. I'm going to throw our kind of draft board and just talk through process here a little bit. The only guy we have left on the board from the second round, Jaden Higgins left. In the third round, it's very early, but it's not second round. Ao Manor, interesting to Cleveland, whoever they wind up with at QB there. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, who knows, And then the other name that really jumps off the page to me is Jalen Milroe as somebody I'm very interested in. Terrence Ferguson sneaks in a little bit as well, just because I think Otten is just a guy, but he's a guy who has chemistry and tight ends take time to develop. So for me, I think I'm between Higgins and Milroe at this point. With that being said, I am going to go the direction of Higgins, just because if I can't spend a second on Justin Fields this offseason, knowing he had the potential, if I wasn't doing that left and right, should I really be doing it on a guy that I don't know if I believe in that much? Maybe, but I'm going to go Higgins anyways. I like him as a wide receiver prospect. I like Seattle as a landing spot. I think that he'll easily be the 2 there. I don't think he's ever going to overtake as the 1, but at this point in the second round, a guy that I like the size of, I'm okay with that as a pick given the draft capital.
He's going to beat out Jake Bobo for wide receiver 2.
I forgot Bobo was there. Never mind. Give me the pick back. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was between those 2 as well. so I'm just going to go ahead and take the upside swing at this point in the draft. Like, it might just be burning this pick. I get that, but he's got the tools to be a massive impact player for fantasy if he gets the job and if he develops. So it's basically all an upside swing here at quarterback. I don't expect him to start this year, but Carr's not very good. We saw Rattler not very good. I think Hayner's gone now. I could be wrong on that, but just not the best for him. So the opportunity exists. The path to success exists. Not the highest probability of hitting it, or he would have gone a lot sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. The only running back that's available that has been drafted in this mock is Ollie Gordon. I think that Devin Neal, Bashal Tootin, those guys are in consideration if they're early 4th round picks. I'm kind of tempted to swing at one of those, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with what's on the board. I'm going to go with a guy you guys know I've talked about a good bit, and that's Elijah Arroyo. He's at the top of the 3rd round here to the New Orleans Saints. I think they could use a guy because Rashid Shaheed, he's coming off a major injury. And outside of Chris Olave, they really don't have much of anything. So I think he could be an instant impact guy even as a rookie. Derek Carr wasn't that bad last year. And if Kellen Moore can just keep things stable, I think the offense could be at least decent. I know it's maybe kind of a gross ecosystem overall, just looking at their future and their quarterback situation of the future. But I think that Arroyo could be pretty fantasy relevant. And I think he's a talented guy.
No, I can't blame you that given the tight end premium whatsoever. Juwan Johnson just re-signed, but Juwan Johnson's Juwan Johnson. He's just a tight end dependent. He's just a touchdown dependent tight end. Arroyo, if he's as good as we think he could be, is not going to let a jag keep him off the field long term. So at this point, we have Ollie Gordon here, the only running back that was drafted, left on the board. I'm not in love with any of these wide receiver spots. Jalen Noel to the Chargers. That's a very late 3rd round pick. The hit rate on those, I don't want to take that in the 2nd round, frankly. Ao Manor, Cleveland. I mean, they have 2 wide receivers there that I don't think are amazing. Judy's pretty solid. I think he's a solid NFL wide receiver. I don't think anyone here is going to talk trash on him as a NFL wide receiver. We just don't think he's Himothy or anything like that. Tillman's all right. Ao Manor just I think fits that same bill here at Cleveland with a murky QB slot. I think I'm going to go off of the draft board and take a running back with no landing spot. Doesn't matter where he goes. Caveat, if he goes in the 4th round, I'm assuming he goes in the 4th round with the speed. Doesn't matter where he goes. Even if he went in the 5th round, I don't think I could do it if he goes in the 5th round, but I'm just saying if he goes in the 4th round, I'm assuming for this pick, this purpose, I'm going to go Tootin here just with the speed. I'm just not an Ollie Gordon believer. Maybe the right process is taking him with the 3rd round draft capital, knowing Aaron Jones will get injured at some point and there'll be a selling window where I can move him for a future 2nd. Or maybe he's actually good. The more I talk about it, I should take Ollie Gordon, but I already said Tootin and there's no Tootin takebacks here.
I see what you did there. I'm going to go ahead and just take Ollie. I think if we knew how day 3 went, there definitely are several running backs I would consider over him. Devin Neal, RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, a few other guys. But I kind of like Gordon more than it seems most people. I wouldn't say he's a my guy by any stretch of the imagination, but that sophomore season was incredible. There's some name value. It's going to be a high-powered offense. The guy in front of him is pretty old. Definitely probably going to miss a few games this year, like you said, if not, hopefully not more. Even though he plays for my rival, I really like the player. Aaron Jones, one of my favorite Packers of all time. Do not wish ill health on him, but it just happens. Ollie Gordon probably going to be a quality backup. Definitely someone I would expect to either be able to sell or start while Jones is out. Then after this year, I think he has a chance to take the job, but don't love the pick here. Like I said, if we know how day 3 went, it might change. Like Justin said, I just don't love the wide receiver landing spots we saw in the 3rd round. A few tight ends I was considering, but I'll take the running back here. Close this out.
Yeah, I actually regret taking Tootin over him. As I was saying, as I was making the case, I felt like it was Gordon. Gordon probably was the right pick, but he's so slow, 4.6 too. But what can you do?
So 1st round goes Janty, Tet McMillan, Cam Ward, Marion Hampton. Pick 5, Travion Henderson, Shador Sanders, Ty Warren. 8, we had Caleb Johnson and Quinshaw Judkins. Burden at 10. Travis Hunter sneaking into the 1st round at pick 11, and Colston Loveland closing out that 1st round at 112. 2nd round, we start with Matthew Golden and Emeka Egbuka, 2 players that I think the 201 and the 202 had to be thrilled with. Jackson Dart at 203, Scatabo and Sampson next. Mason Taylor at the 2-6, Trey Harris, Higgins, Jalen Milroe, Elijah Arroyo at 210, Bashaw Tootin 211, Ollie Gordon at 212.
Now, I think this is actually the most useful and the most fun, at least for me, part of these mock drafts is when we kind of get to deconstruct what we feel like we have learned from this draft. First question I want to throw your guys' way. When we did our last mock draft, when there were no landing spots and everything was flowers and potential and daisies and rainbows, we had a couple takeaways. One of them was we were pretty happy through the whole second round of that draft. With these landing spots, these aren't locked in stone landing spots, but landing spots will have disappointments like we felt today. Do we feel like we are more tempered on the second round than we were before?
I think a little bit, but I think for the most part, I still feel pretty excited when you see like the reality of Jalen Milroe falling, Jackson Dart, not having really as much of a chance to start early. I think that really kind of makes reality set in a little bit. But yeah, when you're considering guys going to round 4 at the back of the second, I think it opens your eyes a bit as well. But overall, I felt pretty decent about round 2.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts into perspective how we were feeling about everyone in that last mock now that we have simulated landing spots. I still like this. I still think day 3, you're going to have some landing spots you really like, some players you like. Definitely some landing spots we didn't like in this one. But I mean, at the end, I'm still getting a 3rd round running back on a good offense. I know he's going to start as a backup, but I still think it's pretty solid. I do think, though, it does give us a little extra perspective from last time where we see that, a few players going to landing spots we don't like and all of a sudden it thins out just a little bit more.
Yeah, to me, it's not disappointing. Like, I'm probably pretty happy through the 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range in the second round, where, of course, we know some of those guys are going to miss. But there's guys that I think have a solid chance at the very least of holding value where they're picked at, which is all you can really hope for an early second pick is a chance to hit and they'll hold value for a little while. As we get later on, I feel like the second round fades off, but second rounds always do. I just think my opinion of it was already kind of where it is right, where we're seeing it today was that it's going to get murky at a certain point. And I think when we talked about how it did get murky, probably 206, 207, that range there. Looking at the first round, previously we talked about kind of an expectation of label it what you will. Maybe it was the 102 to the 111. I think we were thinking maybe it's more realistically the 105 to the 110-11 would end up being a big mega tier potentially. You could even extend that a little further potentially. Do you guys feel like it's more likely that we are going to see multiple tiers in there, as I kind of suggested in our last mock draft, and I feel like we kind of did in this one, or did these landing spots, do you not expect to see these wide receivers really falling and maybe have more of a solid, larger tier because of that?
Probably sort itself somewhat, but I could definitely see the 105 for even the 202 here we're looking at. I don't know if Hunter, for me at least, I'm a little weary of drafting him above some of these guys, maybe the 201. I still think that's solid. I still expect these guys to get good enough draft capital for that to remain a good pick all the way to the 201, but I could definitely see that breaking into 2 tiers.
Yeah, I kind of see it that way now with this. I think just de facto with Luther Burden and Igbuka going the second round into spots we don't necessarily love with rookie quarterbacks, already an alpha there. I mean, Burden doesn't have as much one, like I said, with Ridley. But I kind of see it split 105 to 109 here. I don't think it's a huge tier break where it was super definitive, but I think it could sort out that way with a couple guys falling, a couple bad landing spots. Like I don't love the landing spot for Colson Leveland personally with their rushing quarterback and good weapons there. I think that there's a good chance it does split in 2.
Any other big epiphany moments or takeaways either of you guys want to bring up or discuss from this fun exercise today?
Well, I guess I would just say this is the first one we've done with mock drafts as a podcast or with a mock draft to simulate landing spots. I was kind of against it last year around this time, but I think it's a really good exercise. Obviously, these landing spots aren't going to be accurate, but it gives us some talking points and it also prevents us from using the cop-out answer of if we assume draft capital or landing spot or whatever,
This isn't from the sports almanac that Marty McFly took from the future? Or no, that was Biff took that from the future, but it's not from that? This isn't real?
It wasn't even right, dude. The Cubs won the World Series like a year or 2 later than they thought. So I think it was actually the year after the movie predicted. But look, like we said, it's not going to be accurate necessarily, but it gives you some good things to consider that you'll have similar decisions to make in your draft, even if they're different teams.
Yeah, I think if you're holding picks in the second round range or maybe 110 is kind of what I got my eye on. If I'm holding the 110, this kind of makes me think, okay, this pick could fall to a separate tier. Maybe I want to move it for an established player or try to trade up if if it makes sense if the price is right. But I think it just really, reality hits me in the face like, okay, 110 I might not be nearly as excited as I was. Just gives that volatility there. It really makes me think, okay, let's see how this shapes out.
It makes me more excited. For our last mock draft, I was a little disappointed. I traded a 110 for Hawkinson in a half PPR 1 point tight end premium, so double points per tight ends. But after the last draft, I was like, I love everyone at the 110. But in this draft, when we get to the 110, I'm like, glad I have Hawkinson. So the reality is probably somewhere in between the two. I don't think we're going to have as murkiness for as many of these players, but we could. We'll see what actually ends up happening. Definitely interesting. We are excited to do more mock drafts as the season rolls along, kind of sharpen our wit a little bit more. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Data Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen and view. And from all of us here at the Data Construction Podcast, until next time.